Hello, I'm Mark Tucker.
And I'm Alan Furstenberg, and welcome to Two Voice Devs.
Two Voice Devs, everybody.
How's it been going, Mark?
Oh, it's been fun. It's been crazy. On social media this week, it was put out that I had changed jobs, and I am working for a rain agency. Great group of people. Development team that I left at SOAR. Just always tough to make a transition. To something new, but just so excited. It's been a great week, and
Congratulations!
Thank you, and
congratulations on the new position. Yeah,
lots of so nice people have congratulated me, and I'm just so grateful that people are so kind. So that's big news on that side of things.
Fantastic. Also, big news was that you and I were named to top voice technologists.
Yes.
In the past couple of weeks. So that was very exciting to see as well.
Yeah, and once again, people are just so nice, and it's great to be recognized for trying to make a difference.
Yeah, and it's a fantastic community we're part of. I'm really glad that the whole voice community acts this way. That when one of us does something fantastic, all of us are coming out and saying just how much we do deserve this recognition, these honors, these sorts of things that we've been doing, and that we're all giving back to the community. I think that's fantastic.
Yeah, I think it is too. Hopefully, it's inspiring for other people to keep doing what they're doing. I know that a lot of energy and I guess hard work and thought has already gone into this industry, and I think more voices are welcome and needed. And just welcome to the family, and look forward to learning from you.
Yeah, definitely. The more people that are out there, I feel like there's so much that we all have to discover and learn and explore, and problems to encounter and help to give each other, because there's so much more that we need to do that. Yes. we need everyone to help do it.
Well, and everybody has their own personal strengths and experiences and perspective on things.
Yeah.
That everybody is uniquely qualified for being them.
Yep. And I hope that that's part of what we explore on this show is exactly what our differences are and how our differences help make things better.
Yeah, no, totally agree. So what have you been doing on your week? That's what's been going on.
My week's actually been a very frustrating week in some ways. I keep running into problems and trying to solve or work around those problems, and in a lot of ways they're minor problems, and some of them are relatively easy workarounds, but it's always one more, this is going to take me half an hour to fix, and 4 hours later it has not.
I've hit those most of the days.
And it's been one of those after another, and some of them also are things that I do not expect will work, and sure enough they don't. So I needed to play something in a different language, was something I wanted to fool around with, and I'm like, you know what, this is not going to work, and I know it's not going to work, but let's see just how badly it doesn't work. Yes. And sure enough, it did not work at all. It was quite bad. So hopefully, so I had the workarounds ready, and I knew where I was going with it. I meant I needed to pre-record audio, which in this particular case was fine.
Yeah.
But it's one of those really frustrating, I just want that support there so I don't have to do these workarounds. I want all these features, and I want them now.
Hey, that's what a developer does. They find solutions to problems, and especially when they see something like in a 1P experience, and you're like, how come we don't have that in what we're doing? Yeah, you're like, somebody can do this, and it's possible. It's not like a technical limitation. It's just, but I'm sure there's other reasons. But still, yes, as a developer, you're always looking for getting the most recent features out.
Yep.
And be able to use it. Well, you helped me with a problem over the weekend.
First of all, I'm glad it helped. I saw messages from you this morning about some of the solutions you were finding. So why don't you tell us about the problem and let's talk about it a bit.
Okay, so in a previous show, we talked about Snatch Word, which is the game that that I'm working on that's developed for an multi-platform. So it's already out there available for Alexa, and I'm working on getting the Google Assistant version out. And the challenge that I had faced is that when I had done this, it's all built with the Jovo framework, so shared code base, a lot of this shared functionality, is that I had developed it with Dialogflow. And in the fall, then Jovo came out with support for Actions Builder, but I wasn't sure exactly how long, or frustrating it might be.
And I think what we talked about last time was me suggesting that if you can, might be a good idea to move over sooner rather than later.
Yes, and so that was my intent during the week, and I really, tried to get to it throughout the week, and really didn't get any time to work on it until this weekend. And so I set myself up like I do sometimes on Friday evening, getting something done, so at least there's a little bit of momentum. So when I get up Saturday morning, house is quiet, I can just jump in and continue where I left off and make some traction. So that's the approach I did. There were some forum posts, a couple of articles on the Jovo website on how to create a new project based on the Actions Builder, but nothing about migrating. And so I knew there was going to be some challenges. One of them being I have a sys.anytype that was a freeform text. So when you say find a word, that word is really just an anytype, anything that you say on the Google side of things, and that was supposed to be migrated over to something called free text, which is part of Actions Builder. And what was posted really wasn't working, but I did find a workaround for that. So, and then something with the cancel action I had to take care of, and there was an on-error handler that wasn't fine. It was really only working for Alexa, and so I had some Alexa-specific code in there, and that was failing when I switched to Actions Builder. So there's a new NPM module that's the Google Assistant CONV for conversational, which is what they're using for the new Actions Builder stuff. So I had to update my code to take out the old reference and put in the new one. The rest of the code is the same for the most part. But I did hit something with the only place that I had actually had any additional functionality for the smart display was in the show leaderboard, and I had done something with lists. But the lists have completely changed.
Yeah, the whole name of that has changed, and a couple of there are subtle differences between the two. Yeah.
Before, what I was able to do in Dialogflow was with the list is I just had a read-only list that would show a list of the top players. But with Actions Builder, they've got things integrated that you actually have to use a list to be able to select something. So there's the whole dynamic of you can't. It might have been kind of sketchy to submit for certification the way that I had it for Dialogflow. They might have rejected it anyway.
Well, so to clarify, one of the list type that you were using is actually meant as a kind of selector. Usually, if you had a long list of items and you'd expect like a menu, and you'd expect the user to be selecting one of them, you wanted a way that they could do so, and that was with a list type. And one of the features was that in addition to presenting it as a list, you would also be able to say some keyword that would also select it.
Yes.
And Dialogflow and Actions on Google kind of took care of this behind the scenes without making it clear what in the world you were doing. Under Actions Builder, they made it a little bit more explicit, so that this list, so that the trigger word that you were creating is a type, and it's a dynamic type now. So, but the catch to that is that the visual elements of it are attached to this type. So you need to create a type in Action Builder. You then need to populate it in your webhook with the trigger words for the type, and with the user interface, the visual user interface that would appear for it. And since you're mostly interested in the visual user interface portion, you didn't care about having to create a new type.
Right.
Right? Yeah.
Exactly. So, so I ended up, commenting that part of it out. So,
Oh, you mean I won't be able to see the high score list anymore?
yeah. When you say,
Oh.
show leaderboard, then it's just going to tell you where you're at. I have to figure out how I'm going to circle back and tackle that. But
Oh.
it's,
I
I
have
guess
some
it's
great pictures of
pushing.
me in the lead.
Yeah. And I've got to figure out something to do. The what I'm using for the leaderboards is online service called PlayFab, and they do post at the end, because every week it cycles over to a new leaderboard. And so I have a list of the IDs that made up the other leaderboard. I have to figure out a way to take those IDs and turn them into a leaderboard that I post on social media or something. So trying, that's something to do. Still,
There's always something more to do.
So so I don't know, that's pushing me more to thinking about doing interactive canvas for the visuals, so that I have a little bit more control over what I want to do.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. Well, that's going to be a next year thing, for sure. But the thing that you helped me out quite a bit on was the webhook. So what is different about Dialogflow and Actions Builder on the webhook side of things is that with Dialogflow, you're able to pass in headers. So it's, basically when the request comes in, Actions on Google handles it, and then it passes it on to Dialogflow, and then Dialogflow is the thing that talks to the webhook. And at that point, you can specify headers that you're going to go ahead and pass. And so I'd already set up on the architecture side for the back end that we're using AWS Lambda. I have one instance that's suffixed with Alexa that is running all my Alexa skills, and I've got one for that has Google that's running all the actions. It's the exact same code base. I just deployed it multiple times. But in order to access that, I use API Gateway for the Google action, because that's, I'm just setting up a webhook, just an HTTP post. But there are two different ways to set up APIs in API Gateway. You can do the old style REST style endpoints, and the new style, just in the last, I think, year, HTTP endpoints. And there's differences, and there's actually efficiencies if you use the HTTP. But I was, for Dialogflow, I was using the REST endpoints, and I can set, allow it to have a key that has to be passed in the header. So basically, just by sharing a key between the what I'm telling Dialogflow and what's happening in the server, that I can protect at least somewhat the API from people hitting it.
And this is meant as a kind of sort of security measure, so that as long as this private key isn't leaked out somehow, that you can, your API gateway is blocking anything that doesn't come in with this key. So, exactly. and Dialogflow is just setting a static string in a header somewhere.
Yeah, so just stored in Dialogflow, it's just sending that. So that's the way everything was set up, and it was working. And then I went to switch over to Actions Builder, and so now when the request comes in, it hits Actions on Google, which is using Actions Builder, which is talking to the webhook directly, but there is no place to specify headers in Actions Builder.
And the basic reason for that is because a static key is not a very secure method of transmitting stuff.
Yes. So can you explain a little bit about JSON Web Tokens and what's happening on the Google side of things with the new Actions Builder, what it's passing, and then I'll talk about what I had to do on my end.
Sure. So instead of sending a static string, and by static string, which is a long set of characters that nobody cares what they mean, just
clear text,
know what they are.
Not signed.
It's clear text. It's not signed. It doesn't change from one request to another. You're sending the exact same header time after time after time. So instead of that, and the biggest security hole of that is if somehow during the transmission, the header gets leaked, or somebody decides your packet is valuable enough to reverse engineer it, they can find out what that secret key is. So it's not so secret anymore. and they can then start sending their own requests directly to you, and you'd think they were authentic.
Yes.
And that has a number of problems with it. This is not considered good security by any stretch of the imagination. It's usually good enough for simple stuff, but it's not real security. What's better is if you have a token of some sort, and that token includes a timestamp, and it is digitally signed using a public key encryption system of which you have the secret key, or somebody has the secret key, and you've released the public key. And if we want to start talking asynchronous encryption, we'll be here for weeks. Suffice it to say that one way that we can generate this token that contains a signature and contains all of this other information is something called a JSON Web Token, or JWT. And what a JWT contains, it contains a bunch of what are known as claims. And these are just key value fields, where one of the keys is, when was it created and when is it good till, and these are timestamps. And who is signing this? And what is this for? Who is the audience? So who issued it and who is the audience, and a bunch of other things, and a signature. And it puts this all into a JSON structure, and then it mangles into a way that it can be included in a bunch of other things. So it doesn't look like JSON anymore, but it's easy to turn back into JSON. And it creates this JWT, and what the assistant does is it creates a JWT, signs it with one of Google's private keys that they rotate every few hours, tells you who it is, who's signing it, so that you know how to verify it later, verify the signature later, issues it for a limited amount of time, says that it belongs to your web app, your action, and attaches this as a header in the request. And the only way we know this is because we've gone and looked at the headers, because we can. It's not a very well documented process on Google's side, although the procedure in general, you see it in lots and lots of places these days. Google uses it for all of their sign-in stuff. Lots of other companies use it for their sign-in stuff. JWTs are used as part of OAuth. They're used as part of OpenID Connect. You see them all over the place these days. So using this really, really standard way is kind of a good practice. It's certainly more secure, because this way, if somebody somehow gets this token, the best that they'll be able to do is use it for maybe another 30 minutes. And usually the process of decrypting an HTTP header takes a lot longer than that. So usually by the time they get this token, it's invalid and out of date, and they can't reuse it again.
Yeah, and even if they're able to look at it, because you can take that token, and there's even a website where you can take the token, and it will tell you all the different information. Here's the issuer, here's the the audience, all that stuff, and that's fine, because it's all signed. So if I try to tamper with it and then resend it, it's just going to come out as invalid, and so so it's good.
And this is basically Google saying, we are certifying what we're sending here because it's signed by Google. So it's Google saying, you can trust, it's using our keys. We are certifying everything that you're coming in here.
So the challenge that I had on the API gateway side of things for the Google, the Lambda that I'm using for Google Action, is that how do I process that token? How do I parse it and check the different parts of it and make sure that it hasn't been tampered with and get information out of it?
And so, how do you do this before it hits your webhook? It's before it hits your real code. You just want this to work for you.
Yeah, and I really just wanted it to work and not have to do extra work, because it was working before. Less secure, but mind you, I was able to go into the test console and with Dialogflow and test against my Jovo code and have everything work. And now it's not working, and it's frustrating because I'm trying to figure out what to do. So Like I had mentioned before, there's two different types of API gateways. There's the older style REST endpoints and the newer style HTTP. And what I could do on the REST endpoint is that there is a place that you could put another Lambda function called an authorizer, and you could write some code that would do all that checking. And I had found something on the internet that had done that and deployed that, and it still wasn't working for some reason, not exactly sure. And so then, I'd reached out to Alan, and he'd given me lots of suggestions, already had told me about different parts of the token that needed to be certain values. And then he had sent me a link about, why you can, there's this built-in JWT
the JWT authorizer.
Yeah. So, but looking at it, I had realized fairly quickly that it's only valid for the newer style HTTP endpoints.
Ah, okay. You see, that I missed, which is why when I'm sending it to you, I'm like, I don't think this is available in the console, but this command line should work. And
yeah,
I didn't realize that it was only connected to the new one. Ah.
Yeah, so it is the new style HTTP ones, and if you go into the UI for that, there's stuff that you can do.
Okay.
And I'm using serverless framework to deploy things, and so I was able to find how do I expose the trigger into my Lambda to be an HTTP API gateway endpoint with the JWT token authorizer. So I did that, and it still wasn't working. And but then there was some confusion. I had actually had a wrong value for my audience value. I had audience, which was just the word audience.
No, you need the actual project ID.
and so then, yeah.
So what the JWT authorizer does is it at the HTTP gateway point, it looks at the audience and matches it to a string that you set, and it looks at the issuer. Using the issuer information, it gets the keys for the issuer and validates the signature. And then it does some other things like make sure that the time that it was issued is in a reasonable time frame and it hasn't expired and similar stuff like that. But it does depend on you providing the issuer and the audience and making sure that they match the issuer and audience that have come in.
Yeah, that Google's going to pass when the Google action gets passed to your webhook. So I had realized that mistake because I'd gone through the notes that you had sent and I'm like, okay, that's not quite right. So I tried that and it worked. I was like, yes, it works. So I was really, really excited. And so here's the thing I did. So I went ahead and like, okay, so you've been beta testing, very appreciative of the beta testing of Snatch Word on Google. And so I had done, when I'd done a migration, it gives you the option from Dialogflow to Actions Builder to do that different project. And I had done that, and then I tested that, and it worked against the endpoint. It was broken because the Jovo code that I had out on the HTTP endpoint wasn't the right one, but I stopped getting the error that I was getting that it was not authorized.
It was at least communicating to your endpoint.
Yes. So then I went ahead and pushed those changes, which was going to go ahead and break you because of stuff, because you had your alpha testing against the other stuff, and so I went ahead and pushed it. But then I realized that I actually had pushed the button to release it to production. And I was like, instead of releasing it to alpha, which I was like, oh, that wasn't intended. And so I went into the production and I said, oh, deploy this to alpha, which thinking that what that was going to do was stop the production release and go ahead and just release it to alpha. But what ended up happening is it's released to both. So Snatch Words available out there in the actions directory. And I need to do some more testing on it, but it's available in the actions directory today with all of its stuff. And so I guess it's passing, and there we have it. Now I have a game that is a
multi-platform, fantastic.
Multi-platform, yeah, massively multiplayer, online, multi-platform voice game.
I saw you've also been having some discussion on Twitter about what exactly an MMO on voice is like. How's that conversation been going?
Oh, it's been a great conversation. Lots of people have given input, Think we've, at least in my mind, I've officially established that a game called Star Lanes, which was released years ago, was the first MMO RPG game that was released for voice. Played it a little bit this last week on a commute I had to do, and interesting, very complicated. I'm not as into RPGs as lots of other people, but great game, very immersive. I could see how that would be, so I consider that the first MMO on voice. But there are very few others that are out there. If I were to say list the top 5, I think besides Snatch Word, I could list Star Lanes. I don't know. There's other ones that are doing things that are like you can play in this. I don't know, things that I guess I consider a voice game is that one, there's this perception that MMOs have to be complicated. That they most of the time they are either RPGs or we've seen them as first-person shooters. But I think that you can have lots of different game genres that would be an MMO. And my idea for an MMO for voice would be that lots of people can play, hundreds or thousands can play at the same time. You're playing in the same game space with limited resources, and that when somebody affects something in that universe, it affects everybody at the same time, and it could often have a shared leaderboard. That's kind of what I'm thinking the definition is.
I think the crucial consideration is that it's the shared resources part, and you're competing against each other for the same resources. So something that I do is impacting you. It's not just we have a shared score table.
Yeah.
Well, that's important. That's a useful thing. That's not the same as a shared world, which I think is a crucial element of MMOs. And in our case, I mean, in Snatch Words' case, the shared world is literally the world of words.
Yes, exactly. So the finite resource is any word that you can get your voice assistant to accept. So that's the resources. It's happening in real time. So if I find a word in Snatch Word and you find a word in Snatch Word, and you're quicker to snatch it than I am, I find it like, oh, cool, it's available. And you do the same thing, and like, oh, cool, it's available, and you snatch it, and then I go to snatch it, it's going to tell me that you have snatched it. And I'm like, because I do that. I don't know. So that's the exciting part of it.
It's not a valid word.
I don't know, maybe.
And not very many points.
Yeah, probably not very many points. Not like Zazzle or something like that.
Ooh, Zazzle.
Pizzazz. I don't know. I've seen some people.
I go for a lot of it's the Z's that are really the good ones.
Yeah, Z's are 9 points each. So anyway, so I'm really excited about Snatch Word. Obviously, I'm like a 10 on a scale of 1 to 5. Because I'm really excited about seeing what happens with it and people using it, and already cool to see the leaderboard and see, Dr. Terry Fisher is number 1 or 2, and he's playing on Alexa in Canada against
this prisoner guy who's playing on Google in the US, and he and I are fighting it out for the top 2 spots.
You have been, and I don't remember how the leaderboard ended at the end of Sunday night, so I'll have to go back and look. But yeah, no, that's just an exciting the fact that Alexa's released in 5 countries that accept English, so US, UK, Canada, Australia, and India. This is a question that I have. So I marked my Google action as English, and it's out there, and I'm assuming those 5 locations it's automatically released for, or is there anything specifically that I have to do so that people in other countries are able to use this Google action?
So by default, actions are released in all 214 or whatever countries that Google allows stuff to be released in. So by default, you've released to all countries.
Okay.
The language locale is different than the physical locale. So even though you've released it to all these countries, they still need to have their locals, their assistant speaking English. So as long as they have it to speak English, somebody in Germany can play it.
Okay.
So you haven't released it to 5 countries in Google's perspective. You've released it in English.
All right. To the
And
world. Okay.
right to the and not limited it to some countries, because there are cases where you don't want your action to be available in a country, even if they speak the language there, or even if the language would otherwise let them use it. You may not want it available there for local, for legal or political reasons.
Or it might even just be regional, like what's the bus
Right,
schedule for Phoenix, right? Like nobody's going to really care.
right.
And
So so Google differentiates between where it is available and what languages is available in, and by default it's available everywhere.
all right, well, it's going to be interesting because do you know which locale you get based on around the world? Because I use that locale actually to set a flag for your player in the leaderboard. You can use an intent to say, change my player flag to some other country.
So you're using the language locale
yes,
as the information, and I believe it'll be whatever the user ends up setting their language locale to. So if somebody in, say, the Czech Republic, just hypothetically, is using it, Czech Republic, Czech is not a language that is supported, so they would set it to English of some variant, and usually they set it to English UK or English US. So they'd show
okay.
up, in your case, they'd show up as being from UK or US.
Okay, well, good. But I'm glad that on the game I wanted that to be something that people could set, because you could be living in the United States but really be a citizen of Brazil and want to still play the game in English and but want to set your player country to Brazil. So that's good. So that's something that I did. Something else I noticed, when you change something in the skill store for Alexa, then you have to recertify the skill, which I don't know is kind of, so that was kind of the assumption I was going under. I had released it and realized that there was something I wanted to change, either in the description or in the name itself. The Snatch Word was was lowercase as opposed to proper case, and I wanted to change that. And so I did that, and then I went to go to release it, and so I created a new release, but then I went and checked, and it was already fixed. So I canceled that that new release because so it appears that I could go ahead and just change those values inside of the console, and they were reflected almost immediately in the store.
That's interesting. Some things, there are many things that you do need recertification for. So for example, I would have expected that a description, for example, would require recertification, because one of the things they check is to make sure you're not misrepresenting yourself. Changing the case of the name may be something that doesn't need recertification, because they're smart enough to realize that you're just changing the capitalization. Most things, though, when you do change them, do require recertification, and sometimes they're really quick. If all you're changing is a description, sometimes they will just look at it and quickly approve it without going through the full round of testing again. But it also includes things like if you change some of the phrasing that you're using for intents, some of the sample phrases for intents, you sometimes need to go through recertification.
Yeah, so I could understand on language model changes that's something that if you're going to add a new intent or change some things the way that the intents work, I could see that being recertified. I'm actually would be delighted if that it wasn't a bug on changing things in the description and stuff, because like I added a new social media link. So Snatchword has a website and a Facebook page, and now has a Twitter handle. So I just changed the description and added that Twitter handle in there at the end, and when I hit save, it was available. So I don't know. That's
interesting.
So I'd be interested in getting your feedback on that. But that was delightful. The fact that I didn't have to do another release, but I was also surprised that it was released to production, and actually it went fairly quick. It was a lot quicker than the Alexa side of things. But of course, on the Alexa side of things, I do have in-skill purchasing that I don't have turned on yet. And
a lot of the certification can be hit or miss sometimes. Sometimes it goes really quickly. If you're certifying something for the second time, they sometimes just review the changes and it goes a lot quicker.
Yep.
So sometimes it can be very quick and other times it can get caught up on something.
Oh, but this is feeling good to have this project out, and now it's multi-platform, and I'm going to go and between now and the end of the year or first part of the next year, I had some stuff working on Bixby, but I haven't gone back since I've done a number of changes, and just want to see how far the Bixby stuff works and see if I can get that out. So then it will be 3 platforms, multiple countries, all in the same game.
Fantastic. Snatch Word. It is fun. I do find myself, suddenly going, ooh, that has a bunch of Z's in it. Let me see if anyone's got it yet. Oh, it's only worth 15 points. Not enough other characters. I don't know if I want to use one of my daily words on it. I don't know.
Yeah, so I've gotten some good feedback. I had initially, you could get 10 words that you could snatch a day. And then on the Alexa side of things, you could purchase a subscription and get an additional 20. And some of the feedback I got was that they felt like that was a little bit too much. So I changed that to 5 and 10. So you get 5 a day. Well, and it's not like today I get 5 and then tomorrow I get 5. It's like I use this one of my 5, and then 24 hours later I can use that one again. It recharges in 24 hours. So I added a little bit of description at the beginning to make that clearer. And what else have I done? I pushed off some stuff on the Alexa side of things, so it's not immediately asking you to upsell. It's pushing that off for 5 days to give you a chance to use it. And your suggestion, which I really liked, was when you add a word, when somebody snatches a word, it puts their player name on it, so that when you find it, if you've got a visual, then you can see it. You can see who that player is. So that's what I'm going to do next, is include that player name as part of the text to speech. So, when you find a word, you can say that instead of owned by another player, you can say it's owned by Fluffy Bunny 27 or whatever. Right. So.
Very cool. And I look forward to talking with you about how the interactive canvas work goes.
Yes. And I'm trying to think, because I've got some APL, Alexa presentation language stuff on that side of things, but I just keep having this in the back of my mind, using something like the Vue.js with interactive canvas and web API for games, so that it's driving the exact same UI.
That seems like it might be a better approach, because they're very similar.
Yeah. So so it's definitely my cross-platform, analysis is churning with ideas on how we could do that.
So very cool. Looks like it's going to be a fun last week of the year and on into the new year for you.
Yeah, and thank you so much for your help, because I was spending a lot of hours this weekend trying to figure out exactly how to do it, and I got to a point where finally I saw the light at the end of the tunnel, and I'm like, okay, this is possible. I'm just going to go ahead and do it, which I think was totally the right choice to move to Actions Builder.
Yeah, this is one of those cases where I think it's, even if you understand a good chunk of what you're looking at, there's other related stuff that you might not fully get. So, you understood API gateway really well. You didn't understand HTTP gateway as well. Mm-hmm. But once we started putting all of this other knowledge together, it all comes together.
Yes.
And I think my lesson for this always is, if you don't understand something, reach out to somebody else.
Yeah. A coworker, teammate.
Us, really.
Totally.
We are happy to try to help you through problems. Post it on Stack Overflow, post it on Twitter. There are people out there that want to help you solve your problems. Yeah,
and hopefully that this has helped some other people if they're considering doing that. I love the G Actions CLI. The fact that now I can just do a deploy and things are updated.
Yep.
Before with Dialogflow, I had to export things into a zip and then like re-import them in, and thought
G-Actions
that was,
makes
yeah,
it beautifully simple.
yeah, it
And
does.
and you can just check, you can still see the YAML files to see what it looks like.
So it's great. So thank you, everybody. Hopefully you're having a great end of the year and celebrating the holidays with your families and friends and still being safe.
Yep. So until next time, we hope you're all having a very, very happy holidays, happy and bright holidays. And have a good week. Stay safe and take care.
Take care, everybody. We're Two Voiced Avs.
Two Voice Devs.